Alright, the things you need to do or you can't do solo mostly to get your character ready is first of all, check out the dreaming area and pick up all the flowers in the current dreaming area. This is called dresses right now. So you can pick up all the flowers here. I have a video on that and it gives you welcome crests and just get all the welcome crests and you can craft 486 in every slot except for trinkets and one ring. But two things that are really good about that is obviously just instantly getting 486 and everything. You can also pick the stats. So if your class is like Haste Mastery or Haste Verse or something, you can just have like 0 crit, 4 or 5,000 haste, 4 or 5,000 mastery, and just you're good to go. Like it's really fun. Like especially have like a haste class or a crit class or something like that. So that's the first thing you want to do. Once you've done that, you want to do the last hurrah plus any weekly stuff. Like currently it's the Mythic week, so highly recommend that if you have a character right now and you want to play, go do that. The last Torah stuff is for the crest, and sometimes you get something. I really don't rely on this, but the crest is mainly the thing currently, or if, I think next week you should be able to craft 2 pieces of crafted loot gear. Crafted, yep, and yep, that fits. No, currently. Okay, so currently you can make 2 crafted. I'm just being lazy. And I, for example, have this ring here. That's with aspect crest, but you can't just craft a piece without any crests, and you get a 502 ring or whatever you want, like whatever it is, and you can put a like a blue silken lining on that and stuff like that. So that's pretty good. Another thing you can do is the weekly stuff. Like if there's a time walking or if there's a current like mythic, do that. Definitely do that. Currently, it's giving you 2 bullion, so check that out. We don't actually know if that's gonna change in the next season, next week. Next week, like it's definitely gonna change next season. But so LFR is next. Just go to LFR, and you're not doing this for the gear. I really don't recommend trying to do it for the gear because you're only gonna get mad because everyone else is doing this also. So everyone else is like rolling on every single piece of loot and you're never gonna get anything. But what you can do, if you want to be really cheeky about it, you can go here, you can check, okay, what other classes have my tier set uh, item on it. The, what do you call them? I don't know what you call them. I don't remember. Anyways, so for example, this one, it says that Hunter, Mage, and Druid can get this. I'm a Druid, so you could, if you have a lot of time, just queue up, check how many Hunter, Mages, Druids are there. If there are none, you're good to go. You can always just roll on this and you can get it. Or if it's like minimal, definitely. Like, but if there's lots of them, you could just leave. It is possible. You could just leave and you'll get a 30-minute penalty. Just do this as a DPS, I guess, because healer or tank is a little bit of a troll. But if you just queue up as a DPS and leave, that doesn't change anything because the boss's health drops lower based on how many people are in the raid. So there really isn't much of a limit. So long as you have like 6 DPS, the boss's health should be scaled towards the DPS. So it doesn't really matter how many DPS you have. Anyways, that's not the point. Once you've done LFR for the bullions, come over to here, over here, and it right here. I'm inside here, but it's here. This is the entrance between all the circles. It's none of the circles like I thought before. And you got the bullion hunters. You got 3 of them. This guy, this guy, and this guy. It's for the raids. And generally, I would say, since now you should be able to pick up 2 pieces. First one should probably be a weapon. Second one should probably be a trinket, but it highly is dependent on what the current situation, like what kind of spec, class, everything you have. 2 things I want to go over with that is one is do not just immediately go to, oh, I'm just gonna go, I'm a Havoc Demon Hunter, uh, Elemental Pocket Ammo. Okay, I'm gonna buy that. It's not that obvious what you should buy, because the pocket anvil, for example, benefits a lot from just staying in combat. Sorry, I'm getting it confused. Sorry, it's actually Cataclysmic Signet Brand that if you stay in combat, the more damage you do. You don't really want to drop combat, and you don't want to drop boss uptime or stuff like that. So Signet Brand might be your best trinket. It's not super obvious though. Elemental Pocket Anvil is dependent on what spec or class you're playing, because it changes based on melee damage dealer, specialization, main class ability. Wow, that's a handful. So if you're Frost DK, it's Obliterate. That's okay, but it's not a spammable button. Right? Mangle, Maul, and Shred. Oh, those are definitely spammable buttons, right? If you're a oh man, what's going on here? Well, okay, there you go. And maybe let's pick up, for example, Fury Warrior. That's Arms Warrior right there. Mortal Strike. That is not that spammable, right? Raging Blow Annihilator. Uh, that's your auto attacks as Fury, or if you're picking Raging Blow, it's definitely a spam. You know what I mean? Like Havoc Demon Hunter benefits a lot from it because Chaos Strike in single target is used a lot. In AoE, not so much. So again, very dependent. Like on AoE, is Pocket Anvil the best one? No, it is not. So maybe you wanna figure it a little bit out. Like Ashes of the Emperor Soul, it's really good. This is actually a tank trinket. Good luck getting this. But Ashes of the Emperor Soul, that's actually a really good trinket. And it's also pretty good on single target. Only issue is it's a stat stick. It's completely a stat stick. It even takes away haste once you have done using the main stat stick. So if you're really not utilizing this perfectly, and it syncs up with your meta, that's why it's so powerful. If you're not utilizing this perfectly, you're losing so much damage. Versus just picking Augury of the Primal Flame, that only gives you crit, but it's still a little bit better than Emperor Soul, even though it just gives you crit, no main stat, nothing like that, because it just does a lot of damage. So if you're someone who's like struggling maybe with like doing your rotation perfectly and stuff like that, you could just pick up Augury and it takes care of most of the damage for you. I don't recommend this trinket though, but yeah. And Manic Grief Torch, that's a really, really, really good one, especially if you're in a guild or something like that. Because this trinket is not being simmed with the idea that someone dies mid combat. So this is just the trinket if you're just pressing it every 2 minutes. It's got main stat, it's got a powerful active. You don't really have to do much, you just press the active. And if someone dies, oh man, like you're gonna be getting so much damage. And it actually does AoE as well. Not a lot of AoE, but it's good. So keep that in mind. And the last one I gotta go over is the Whispering Incarnate Icons and the Ominous Chromatic Essences. These, as you can see, if you got everyone running this trinket, if you got tank healer and DPS running this trinket, they're pretty decent, right? Like, but you're losing to Erupting Spear Fragment on AoE, and you're losing to Augury on AoE. This is if everyone has the trinket, not literally everyone, but I think it's like healer. I don't know about this. I think you just attune based on Dragonflight. But I think it's just easier for me to go over the Whispering Incarnate icon because if you have a tank healer and a DPS running this, so you say you're a DPS, you need your healer and tank to be running this as well. And I can guarantee you the chances of that is pretty much zero because it's not even the best trinket for the DPS. So I'd be very wary of the tier lists on Wowhead. I mean, if you're running just the Incarnate Icon by yourself, you're actually better off running a Dark Moon deck trinket over it. So just keep that in mind. And here you got the Igneous Flowstone. That's the same idea that you have like people with it. And the last thing I want to go over with this is that if you're a spec that actually has dungeon trinkets that as your best trinkets, which is most casters, you can't buy them. So maybe you're better off just buying a weapon and then maybe buying the cloak, or maybe buying the fire ring, if I could ever find it. I think it's maybe here. This one. Seal of Diurnus Chosen. Even though these might not be your best stats, this ring does a lot of damage. And you're thinking, oh, how am I supposed to do fire damage? The Helm enchant from Mirrorshirl. That's another thing you actually want to do. So do the Amirdrasil for the quest. It's the quest right at the beginning. I think right after you kill Gnarlroot, you can pick up the quest. Do that. Get the Helm enchant. You will do fire damage. It will also do like 2, 3, 4, 5% of your damage. And then you can proc this ring. And this ring does a lot of damage. So yeah, just be super wary. I would recommend picking up trinkets that are not dependent on situations, right? Cataclysmic is dependent on situations. Can you fulfill those situations? Okay, then it's a really good trinket. That's why I picked it up. I'm a tank. I have an easy time staying in combat because I can decide when we go into combat. I wanted this. Augury was also really good for me, but I wanted main stat to make myself more tanky, right? Bellorelos is a perfect example of like this thing sims so well for most casters, but big but is that you have to stay in melee. You have to go into melee to press it, and then I assume you have to kind of get out of melee to get away from all the damage. And it's not even the best one on AoE. Like this thing is way too powerful, and it's a dungeon trinket. So keep that in mind. Also, this thing does damage to you as well over the duration, over like 12 seconds. And I think if the trinket crits, you also take crit damage over time. I'm not too sure about that, but just keep in mind, like if you're just dying randomly every time you pop this trinket, it's probably because you are popping this trinket. So if you haven't already bought this trinket, just keep it in mind. Like it's easy for mage because you can just like alter time, blink in, use the trinket, and then alter time back again or stuff like that. But like warlocks or priests or something like that, I, you know, it's tough to go into melee and then go back out again. Really, I don't really recommend this trinket. Try and go for this dungeon trinket from Azure Vault. I would not recommend trying to go for the chromatic essences. I would not recommend trying to go for Nimue is a really good trinket, but just keep in mind like you are channeling over 3 seconds on a mob. The damage portion is nothing, but the mastery portion is everything. Yeah, so if you don't like this trinket, and it's also a stat stick, so if you're not utilizing it perfectly, you're losing a lot of damage. While the tome is both intellect and it just passively does insane amounts of damage, it's a perfect trinket. I highly recommend farming this trinket. Iridius fragment, that's really dependent on how good you are at utilizing this trinket. You know, Nimue is a little bit better because it just gives you intellect. This one just gives you mastery, so it's less damage, like loss and blah blah. So it's not super obvious. What I would personally say for beginners or newbies or casual players, don't be picking up the incarnate icons, chromatic essences. Don't be picking up Bellorelos unless you like to stay in melee. Just go for the weapon and go for one trinket that makes sense, or go for the cloak. Although I don't really recommend the cloak too much in the beginning. Yeah, weapon first, trinket next. See what happens. All right. Is there anything else? I mean, yeah. I mean, just the next thing to do is just do the raid, do Mythic Plus. There's really not much you can do. Just go into the dungeons. I wanna remind people that Dawn of the Infinite is actually dropping loot. The champion gear for 93. It's really powerful loot. Some classes it's even BIS. If you're somehow able to do this on hard mode, which is very, very hard. It's what I've heard is like a plus 15 currently, which is kind of like a plus 25 in the last season. But like for example, this cheat death trinket is really good for tanks and stuff like that. But the main thing is that every boss drops loot. Every single boss will drop loot for someone. So you have double the amount of chances because Mythic Plus, if you time it, drops 2 pieces of loot. But you got 4 bosses that all of them can drop loot. So I highly recommend don't go straight into Mythic Plus. Go into Mythic Zeros, finish all of them up, especially this week because you get extra loot on the last boss. There's no timer, there's no stress. Uh, it's a little bit difficult still to get into keys. People are getting a bit elitist with their invites these days. And Mythic Zeros is it's not a cakewalk. It is a plus 10 for some people. That's not easy, but it is really, really worth doing. Definitely worth doing. And beyond that, and also, yeah, by the way, Mythic Zeros count towards your Great Vault. So that's actually really, really nice. You're going to get hero loot, if I remember correctly. I think you get a hero loot. But yeah, definitely worth doing. Other than that, just farm crests, do the raid. On normal, it's quite easy if you can get into a group, or if you have the superpower of actually being able to start your groups. If you have the mental capacity, I don't mean like being stupid or something. I just mean like if you really want to deal with the stress of pucks and you actually have to manage them, uh, you can definitely just start your own groups and you'll have like so much loot because you can decide just go instead of being declined for every key. Mythic Zeros, normal raid. I think next week you can get into every single raid, so you're gonna have a huge amounts of variety. They'll all be awakened instead of just a mere Brazil currently being awakened. So you can do normal on every single raid, and once you are decently geared, like maybe like 500 item low or so, you should be able to get into a normal raid and just blast it. And beyond that, the tier sets, I'd say once you get like champion track gear, just send it. Just go to the catalyst. It is over here somewhere. Just go to the catalyst and just convert it into your 4-piece. Once you have like champion, minimum champion on each piece, just send it. You know, you generally want to have hero at least, but we're not thinking about like some, you know, I don't assume you're gonna go mythic rating because if you're gonna go mythic rating, you should already have people helping you out with this, and you should already be, you know, 5-10 geared anyways. And I don't know why you're watching this video then. So just send it. I think currently you have like 5 or 4 catalysts. I think it's 4. So next week I think you get 5 or even 6. I think so. Or it's next week you start to get 2 every. So just send it after LFR. If you want to be really certain, do it after like doing all the normal runs. But you should be generally good. The tier piece is huge amounts of damage. And the last things you can do that are like deterministic loot is if you do the raid on normal or if you do the raid on, I think it's heroic actually. If you do the raid on heroic, you should get a Omni piece. This Omni piece is like this thing, Awaken Mark of Mastery, and you could buy any piece of tier set. So this is your hero track upgrade. Another way to get this is to get 2k rating. Once you get 2k rating, you should be able to get another piece of this. I think it's maybe this guy. Oh, this is the raid, I guess. But yeah, no, this is mythic. Anyways, yeah, you get the point. So you get 2 pieces of tier sets over the course of time. If you don't want to focus on that, I would generally just think about this as like a way to upgrade from champion to hero on the track loot thingy. And save your crests for your weapon, save them for your trinkets. Like I said, like if you get an upgrade in, you can always upgrade at least 2 pieces over the course of who knows. And think about the one ring, one neck generally is like your crafted pieces. That's generally the best way to go. And you could also like you want the crafted pieces because you can put blue silken lining or some shadow flame something and whatever is the best one for your class. So yeah, that should be it. Also, you get a socket when you craft a ring, so it's a really good place to put it. I think that's about it. Uh, Good luck and enjoy. See ya.